Yep, we're good.
No.
Really? It would have been.
I could have kept working out there, but I thought next week's a break.
Yeah.
Twisty today, to be working day and night. And tomorrow, though, someone will feel they're getting it done.
That was me, but I just got to get in my hands.
Getting.
Kind of funny feeling, yeah. Pulling the trigger in the heavy part of the ladder.
All right, it's 6 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we take the roll call, please?
Ryan Robertson.
Here.
Alan Schneider.
Here.
Tom Sexton.
Here.
Lois Schneider. Here. Kevin Mills.
Got a quorum, and we'll start with approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
All second. Okay, motion by Sexton, second by Rogerson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. And first up is our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second
Okay, motion by Rogerson, second by Mills. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is, or the consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to our public forum. Anyone wishing to speak in the public forum this evening? No? All right, we'll keep moving then. Our city engineer's report is up next.
Yep, I'll be doing that tonight. Believe next meeting will be rejoined by Brian, so should have some updates from him in person next meeting. So first and foremost, CDG downtown revitalization, we will have a resolution to approve the pay application number 1 here shortly. Let's see, we had the first progress meeting so far. Most of the work so far has just been masonry work. They haven't really gotten too in depth within the big replacement stuff yet. But let's see. I'm not sure what change order number 2 was yet, but and then I have another progress meeting this month. That's specified on here. I'll have to ask about change order 2. I don't know if that's something that they'll have to. Some of those things that are like smaller than, I think it's like $5,000, where it's going to cost more for it becomes a building owner decision, or if it's a reduction, that's something that, I guess it's small, it's ultimately going to cost more by waiting to do it. There is a degree of discretion involved in there. I'll have to get more information on what change order number 2 is, because I have not seen that from Martin Gardner. But as far as the pay application number 1, from Cornerstone Commercial Contractors, we have it in the amount of $91,952.52. And as mentioned in the previous meeting, we are receiving monthly contributions from each owner as a 12-month installment plan for their portion of it. And then the grant portion is billed out on a quarterly basis. So we would have, at this point, after, I don't know if it would be, I'll check if that's actually ECOG's portion, but is the application, like the general county expenditure sheet that is used for reimbursements, if that's due at the end of July, or if that's due in, is it due at the end of June? Or is it due in July for the period of March? Well, I mean, April, May, and June. So anyways, we'll have another reimbursement coming here in the next month or so, or applied for actually. So that takes a while for it to get processed by HUD and then sent back to us. But
being that Axiom is the general owns project that we hired,
they're not the general, Martin Gardner is. So
Martin Gardner, I'd like to see an approval of these pays from them that they have completed that amount of work.
So that's who this is from. So you see architect certification on, page numbers here, but it's actually the first payment page of the application here, page 1. That's Bethany Jordan. She's from Martin Gardner. So she's the one who sent this over. Although Axiom has it on their engineer's report, Martin Gardner is the one overseeing this project. We put it under Axiom's engineer report as Danielle is involved as the project manager, where she's kind of the intermediary between the city, business owners, the architect, and so like they're not, Martin Gardner is the one that's overseeing all the construction.
So Martin Gardner is saying that this amount of work is complete?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just the ones that have price behind them, like masonry, carpentry, windows, whatever. How much work, I'm not sure I follow on this bill, how much has been done?
So you'll see completed on, if you're looking at the spreadsheet where you have different columns here, you'll see columns D and E where it says completed work, and then C is like how much they're anticipating will be. So then they're broken down into each building. So you'll see like line 1 says 41 West First Street, and then it breaks down into what each piece of work is like budgeted for that building, and then off of that you'll see how much has been completed. So 441 First Street, you'll see that there's been $4,100 in masonry and $525 in carpentry done so far in that building. And you'll go down the list at each building. That's
It's all exterior work on all those space fronts?
Correct. Yeah. So think about like they will be inside buildings on some of them because for window and door install, some of that. But think of it as like the first like foot into a building. That's the project here. And some of them there's some roof work on as well, but primarily fronts, facades.
I'd be leery to give them on some of these on column G just 100% performance bond. I'd like to see that they're 100% done with whatever that portion of performance bond is.
I think that just means that they purchased the performance bond.
Is
That's
that how you
that they've got, yeah, they've got that coverage in place.
Okay, that makes sense. I would think that would be an end expense.
I think that's pretty typical for the project, that they're purchasing the bonds at the beginning of the project. Anything happens throughout, and usually when they acquire the bond, you know, they put the expense in, the city, or whoever, the project owner pays for it at that point. It's just like completing any other piece of the work.
We would do the project.
I can accept that.
It's a one-step process.
I've never been on finance on the construction, so.
I'm glad you could answer that one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal for, a lot of times, that may be all we pay in the first pay application is just
And then
things
just
like those
bonds.
bonds. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, $91,952.52. That's what we have here.
Yeah, so about 10% of the project overall.
Yep.
Good questions, though.
Yeah.
We definitely want to understand what we're paying for and how the process works. Any others?
Like I said, I will ask about change order number 2 since I don't have any documentation on that. So I see that's mentioned in Axiom's report, but I just received Axiom's report on Thursday. But this pay application I received like the week before. So that's something that could have been approved between the 2 communications there.
Is this the work is being done on, is this on 22?
Downtown, it's moving.
Downtown,
Yep.
okay, because, is it this way I can print out some of these things?
I can, yes, on our website, there should be some stuff. If you leave your information, I can certainly get that to you. What specific information you're looking for?
Well, I was wondering, okay, I've heard that it goes in so far, so it's gonna be, make the facade, everything look attractive. And I've seen machinery down here, it's a very good job, I think, it's being done. I'm not really good with numbers. But I walk the streets, back and forth. My son lives on one side of the town, I live on the other side of the town, so I'm always using, and I like what I see.
You also, this big plan set right there underneath it, yeah, so that's the whole project of all of the design and stuff in there as well.
Okay.
So yeah, you're always welcome to stop by City Hall to go with that too, but I can certainly get I believe it's on the city website, but I can.
Would that be in that newsletter that I received the other day?
No, but I can get you a link to the actual plans, for it, so. You'll have to, yeah, if you leave your contact information or something like that, that'd be helpful, but, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So just one quick for me, spending this kind of money, this is the first thing I've been on as a huge project kind of thing like this that involves so many buildings. Do we, and I know it's up to your Axiom and the other architect and everything, make sure everything's right, but when you spend this kind of money, maybe you want to see it, except for walking the street and seeing what was physically done outside, a lot of pressure washing and everything. We ever take a tour through or anything to update our own minds and eyes on what's being done, or is that a really difficult thing to do per building? Or is it even something that you need to be doing?
I mean,
You have people to trust and do this, so.
Yes, on your last bit there, but also the nature of this work is exterior, so you should be able to get pretty much the full scope of what's going on in the project by taking a walk through
I'm gonna
downtown.
walk down, walk
Yeah.
around, so I didn't get it done, so I will do that.
But, I mean, that's part of, like, having a city engineer or a contractor architect on a project is they're the responsible party overseeing the construction. So it is their responsibility to report the projects, how things are going back to us. And we're not supposed to really have that active role with the contractors, which is probably good to have streamlined direction, and rather than having, as a contractor in the middle of having a city giving you direction, engineer giving you direction, in this case, also property owners, and it used to be a mess pretty quick on that sort of thing. But my recommendation to stay up to date on how things are moving, give yourself a walk through the downtown. But right now, it's pretty preliminary work that they're doing. They haven't really gone into the big gut job on any of it, so.
Just want to stay invested on what's being going on and what we're paying for.
I'll do it.
Yeah, I think so,
Yeah.
right, Cole?
I'm ready.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-38. In making pay request number 1 in the amount of $91,952.52 to Cornerstone Commercial Contract. Terse.
Motion by Sexton, second by Schneider. Any additional discussion? If not, I'll take a roll call vote on that. Rogerson.
Aye.
Sexton.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
And Mills.
Aye.
Okay. That is approved.
Alright, PCC improvements. Let's see.
Another question. The people who own the property, okay, you've got property owners, I've noticed a sign that says, there's an apartment upstairs for like $600. Does some part of that money go to us? Does part of it go to, who owns that apartment upstairs?
Building, the property owner.
Property owner? Okay, and, having that street like this, does that help us out? The city?
As, I mean, it's an epic, not only is it, you would have increased property valuation, so you would get higher property tax, revenues, but also it's a bit difficult to specifically directly measure, but there are intangible benefits to having a nice downtown, as means potentially better businesses or more businesses there, people shopping there, people wanting to live in your community, which means more property tax revenues, more properties, people living here, shopping here. So there's a lot of indirect benefits as well as the overall, community sense of like, how well is the community doing? Especially our downtown is right in the middle of 22 people drive through all the time. And having something that looks nice, is busy, has good businesses in it, portrays our community in a very positive and vibrant way. And, so yeah, there certainly are like direct benefits to the city monetarily, although this is a sizable investment, it would, it would take a long time for us to recoup that. However, there's all of the, indirect benefits as well, correlated to this being a good move for our community.
But we're, traveling out,
Sir, I understand you have questions. The purpose of the meeting tonight is for the city council we appreciate you being here, number one, I want to say that. But we usually don't do back and forth discussions with those in attendance. It's for the city council to meet. You're welcome to ask questions after the meeting if you have those. But we want to allow the meeting to proceed.
Got it.
So that we can get the work done that we need to get done.
Got it.
So,
Thank you.
General public forum, begin the meeting, that's the time to come in and speak, ask questions. So, but I'm always happy to chat after meetings or schedule other time to chat too. So. All right, PCC improvements here. So Allison from Axiom, I think had an intern here. They did a inspection end of last week. There's still some final backfill work that needs to be done on some of those bench pads that were poured up Overland Park, but those benches have been completed. I don't think we've had those installed yet as of last I checked, but once that backfill work is done, we'll get the benches put in there, and then I mentioned Big Iron is on the application for Third Street railing. But the big news, Captain Kirk Birthplace Monument. Has everyone taken a look at that?
Looks great.
We've had some big improvements there. We had Becky, Brian, Logan, Jed pitched in, helped get some of the blocks put in, planting done. We got rock put in. We decided to do rock as, given this is a year-round attraction, and when the plants kind of die off, still having something that looks a little better than mulch was important. But so yeah, it's coming together. We have a little bit of, we're gonna wait for the dirt to settle a little bit after this rain tomorrow, and then finish up the front beds there. We're gonna reinstall the free library, as well as there's a rocket ship donation thing for, the museum, in RAC. Actually, that one is be RAC for that one. But that's getting reinstalled there. And then we've also been thinking about, so there's, in the back there's AC units, for City Hall, and looking at some kind of barrier, whether it be, a block wall or a fence. That's something that we should probably look into to really tie it all together and finish up the project. But other than that, I think it's looking a lot better. The letters need repainted, but that's pretty small compared to the rest of it, so.
Vote, let's investigate white vinyl privacy fence. I think we know somebody that does that.
We actually did a, assessment of the privacy fence and looking at possibly doing a stair-stepped wall that would go up to cover the air conditioners so that when you're trying to have that photo appeal, those are gonna be covered, but it's not just gonna be a block-off type of thing.
Okay.
So it's more like a
The
4-foot wall.
My understanding was to be 4 courses high and not tied. We can't do that.
Say that one more time.
The wall, I'm understanding, was requested to be like 4 courses high and not tied
Yeah.
or anything. We can't do that.
Right,
It'll just fall down.
right. So we're just looking at a way to actually
Okay.
stabilize that, so that basically 4 high by 6 foot long would be stable. It would only be that long, and then it would stair step down from there and go clear to the end with just one.
I think we're definitely open to other
Yeah.
ideas, any other ideas on how to create kind of a visual barrier and.
Yeah, I'd like white vinyl behind there, but yeah.
But
And then you had mentioned somebody painting it. I think maybe
The letter.
Rack Club should
I,
take care of that.
that's someone with, some painters taking some brushes and a couple bottles of red, one bottle of red and one bottle of black to touch those up real quick. But I think that would sharpen it up and.
Yeah, it would look much better. I would think the Rack Club could take care of that.
So the review of the fence, Ryan, was more the way the panels are. It's going to be a 6-foot panel, and then you're gonna have to conjunct it with a 2-foot panel.
Sure.
So you're gonna have more posts that you're gonna put in there, and with all those utility lines there, it could be a little bit more complicated than we originally had anticipated it being.
You bet.
Yeah. It's definitely a major improvement over what it was a year ago.
I think that looks great.
So, but that's the point there is, finishing it out. You know, if we've gone to this part, make sure that we can finish it out and make sure it looks nice, but. Anyways, any comments on PCC improvements?
I tell the guy, and they need a deadline. They need to give us
And talk to Josh about that.
a day that they're gonna be done, because it seems like they've been dragging that out.
I can talk to Josh on that. Wellness Center, we have gotten approval from OPM that they will help us with our pre-bond, referendum, preparation efforts. So Brian's report here says bond or financial preparation. So they would just be, I guess he says marketing and bond financial preparation, which when the conversations that I had with OPM, that was just going to be the marketing side of bond referendum. But I have not met with them yet. I've just gone to make sure that was a possibility. And Liz replied today with an email this week saying scheduling a call to start the pre-bond referendum marketing campaign prep. Let's see, said all of the schematic designs and narratives and pricing have been completed. And then Axum has suggested to move to the next phase, design and preparation for potential construction in 2026. So that would be going to the, I guess, is that DD level, design and developmental, after schematic design? So that would be the next phase. I've also reached out to Spear Financial. I met with Maggie, and she is currently working on some general obligation bond estimates for us, as well as putting together like just a brief memo on what of the, steps in front of us. All we need to do is a, resolution of necessity, which we, at that point, we need to figure out what our not to exceed value would be. And then we do a resolution of necessity, and that would establish, purpose. And then we would be able to work with bond counsel, to, draft the ballot language and get that, ready for, well, due September 19th to the county auditor. So that would be the next steps on that front. I guess once we have the projections, from Spirit Financial, that'll tell us, like, roughly, if we have a $9.12 million constitutional debt limit, that we can go up to. So we don't plan on that, but we could, legally. But based off of the, I guess, each $1 million increment, that tells us roughly what we expect in a principal and interest payment, and how we can kind of plan how we would pay, that. And then, that also, I think, can tie in with our fundraising, where we can show if we hit this goal, then we only need this amount of debt, and that, for residents who are concerned about us taking on debt as a city, that gives a bit of a way for us to tie them into the project and say, hey, if we, can help out, we can get to this level, we won't need to take on debt. But anyways, I did mention what our current special revenue amounts were, as well as what our current allocations are, as well as the concern with those things being closely tied to casino revenues. So knowing that Cedar Rapids will possibly get a casino, that is something that potentially could be impacted. So Maggie is aware of that and is planning accordingly. So
You're looking for a resolution?
well, not tonight, but
Okay.
that's something after we get our projections. We'll need to look at that and decide what is an appropriate amount. So that not to exceed amount is what would go on the ballot. So obviously we want to have enough that if passed, we'd be able to complete the project, and have a little flexibility in there. But also we don't want to go too high and then scare people away from whatnot. So that's just part of that conversation. So, and I guess I'll talk more about that under my section, under wellness and work section, what we're scheduling for that next. But any other questions on the wellness center as of now? Ryan, you mentioned you got the sign put together.
Yeah, signs up there and, whatever you want to put on it, and there's no plexiglass, but the structure's up there with the light on it. Ready to go?
All right. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ryan.
I'm happy to do it. Stephanie and Connie doing it.
All right. Cherry Lane. So this has actually been changed. Start date would be June 7th. I'm not sure if anyone saw, I just got this morning would be the draft deed for the conveying of property, our section of property, to the school. The school has already conveyed their property to us on that portion. We would just need to go through the formal procedure for ours. I talked to both Brian as well as Dan, our city attorney, today, just to make sure that because we hadn't conveyed our section to it yet, that it shouldn't hold up the project. Dan felt that because we have demonstrated intent on both sides, that it's a bit of a formality. They've already conveyed their section of property to us, which is the large section of the street. And then because if we still need to go through the process of doing the public hearing to actually formally accept the property, from the school or to convey it to them. But given that there is only $1 in land, there's really not a financial interest being conveyed, as well as, I guess the, support on both sides for the project to occur. Yes, both Brian and Dan felt that we were okay to, wouldn't have in place the project. We just need to make sure that we do go through and actually schedule a public hearing, and then hold that, and then we would do, pass the resolution to actually convey the property to them, so.
You said the start date was the 7th, did you mean the 9th, or are they starting on?
Yeah, no, 9th, sorry. Yeah, the 9th, next Monday. My apologies on that.
Thought it was on.
You guys should know by now, you don't get the best numbers from me by the time we hit 6 o'clock.
You're doing fine.
I tend to swap around a little bit at this hour. Hall Park critical reports, only real update there, we have a pre-construction meeting coming up, and that project won't begin until after Truck Fest, but, June 16th.
Will it be started before Truck Fest?
No, after Truck Fest.
All right, you said.
Pre-construction before Truck Fest, construction after, yeah. And then one recent addition, there's, so Axiom has started doing these, what they call story map, which is a website. There's still some updates I sent back to them to complete, but if you follow this link, it'll take you to a website, and it highlights some previous projects as well as current projects. Meeting with Brian next week, so I'm kind of excited to learn more about how we can, convey like updates about projects with relevant, documents on there. But it kind of gives a brief history of some of the projects, and there's some that are missing there, and I sent those to Brian to add in there, but, if you do follow that link, you'll be able to see a few different projects around town. Alan had some questions when we met with him on Friday about, this as a GIS, based, I guess, use. How I guess, other ways that we could be utilizing GIS, for things like, upcoming variants or a change in zoning, or, I mean, that's just the resident side, but there's a lot of things you can also do internally as far as like street inventories, like where all signs are, when last time we did construction on this section of street. I mean, there's a lot of cool things you can do with it that would be very helpful visually, that we currently don't have. So be able to have a kind of visual depiction of all of these documents that we have. So, but I think there's a lot of promising use for GIS, for us in the future, but this is just, one, I guess, very high level, basic way that they're gonna, show some of our projects. So, any questions on that? All right, the last thing I added on there was, 3rd Street, the stump construction Streb, construction, update on that. So, after speaking with Steve Streb, they have, Streb Construction has, agreed to pay for it. I have not received confirmation from Stump Construction that it has been paid yet, but once we have, confirmation that's been paid, our claim on the, surety bond will go from paused to canceled, so we'll withdraw that. But for now, we'll just have it as paused. So if we do get in a situation where it's not paid, we could still, have that submitted. One thing that I'm talking with Dan, I think would probably be a good idea is we still go ahead and, in a situation where Streb does not pay, still approve, myself to be able to pay, Stump Construction, so we're not left out in the middle, for longer. Actually, I forgot I didn't put that in there, but, yeah, it was kind of more of a backup plan if something unfortunately did fall through and that didn't happen, but, I don't have the invoice in here tonight, so we can.
Did you talk to Strap? Did you talk to Steve?
I talked to Steve, yeah,
Yeah, well, that's it.
yeah.
Because Steve said he's gonna pay it.
Yeah, he's good at it. He said it would be 10 days plus before it got resolved.
That was
I mean, I guess I take his word. you
Yeah,
know, so.
they're doing it. What else will go?
Remind me again what this was.
Yeah, Tom, this is, you were out, sorry about that. We had so Strip Construction General Contractor on the Third Street project. Carter and Associates was a subcontractor who was in charge of, like, hooking up, drainage tile, to the storm sewer, and some of the other utility work on the project. I believe that was before I was in the city, but they did drainage tile as part of it. So one of the tiles that they installed was installed incorrectly. It was cut and it was not, property owner, I guess we had a rain and it didn't, flow through and they ended up having some flooding up there. And then Stump Construction came out on site and they were the ones that fixed the, drainage tile. They got that replaced, rehooked up. And because of it, we, as a city, we're the project owner. However, the general contractor is ultimately responsible for the subcontractor's work. We got in a position where it was back and forth on, we weren't gonna pay it because we weren't the ones who were ultimately responsible for it. Streb we weren't getting, actually wasn't even where we were Streb on it. We had sent a demand letter to Streb and Streb had been trying to behind the scenes work with Carter to get it paid. They weren't getting anywhere. So Stump Construction was just left out in the middle, not getting paid, which is obviously not good for anyone. And then we as the project owner, if Streb or Carter were found to be responsible for it, we would have to pay it anyways. But we also have the surety bond. And so in a case like this, we have the ability to recoup that money for any workmanship issues. So because we weren't getting anywhere with our request for it to be paid, we did start a claim on the surety bond. And then we were finally able to get through with Streb. Ryan was able to talk with them a little bit. I had talked to Steve. Our attorney had gone back and forth, and I think really talking to their surety bond company, their insurance started to move things along too. So ultimately, it sounds like Streb Construction is going to pay for it, and they'll be Stump Construction will be made whole. Unfortunately, it took a long time, but we appreciate their patience and yeah.
All right, thank you.
I had a question though. When those things are hooked up,
Mm-hmm.
isn't there an engineer or somebody with Carter that's supposed to
So
okay
it's
that to be
approved?
told that in?
No, it's not like that. It's just,
I thought that's what the
it's
engineers
just,
were.
you need to hook it up and it dumps into our storm sewer and that's okay, there's not gonna be an inspection on it.
And Lois, when that was hooked up too, that would have been, I guess, would that have been 22? Fall of 22 or spring of 23, and that was a really dry year. They didn't even find out there was a problem with it until spring of 24. That was a year ago when that happened. That situation occurred. So it was a good year from, I think, construction to actually them finding out there's a problem with it, because we didn't really have anything for sizable rains.
I guess I just thought that there was somebody to approve that it was.
Drainage doesn't really fall under plumbing or anything like
Well,
that.
we
It's
had
just
another
drainage.
situation a couple of years ago that kind of was.
Yeah, so there's nobody
I'm just saying,
expecting.
it's setting precedent for stuff like this
I would
happening.
have to agree with Lois. When there's any sort of an activity like this before it's buried with dirt, someone ought to be signing off on it. That's on our side of the.
The conversation with Scraps is that this was never exposed. This is Stump's fixed their basement doctor. And their point was that this was never exposed, so they did not know that they damaged it
regardless, it was.
Oh, I get it.
A drilling thing they went to rather than digging up and.
Or just running over it with the
Yeah.
skid loader and it's, 2 inches down, something like that.
Oh, I thought earlier on, that it was.
It was never,
Street.
it was not exposed, evident. But
It
it
was
was damaged during that process.
So, I think at this point, as long as strap payment does go through,
Yeah.
it'll be fine or closed out, but
For
Yeah.
future though, I'm saying that we had a situation where somebody came since I've been on and, nothing was, I just think that,
I don't know if there's, like,
There's not a drainage code
well, no,
that we have.
but Ryan, what you mentioned, like, whether or not it was exposed or not, so if it wasn't exposed, that would never have been inspected at all, and you wouldn't be able to know that it was broken, especially if we didn't have any rain for a while for it to say otherwise. But we do know that it worked before, and then it didn't work after our first big rain after the project. So if it was driven over or crushed or whatever happened there would be the result of the construction. So I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say that something was done incorrectly and then it wasn't inspected, because I don't think we know whether or not it was ever exposed or not.
We don't know that. The conversation went as this, after a couple rounds, is it went before that project, that damage was within the project scope. It didn't work out.
okay.
No, I understand the story here, but I was believing that this was something that was exposed, something they were physically
Yeah.
doing.
Could
No, I don't.
But I understand,
Yeah.
it was in the work area and possible damage.
And Tom, it could have been exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did too, I just thought
for
that
sure.
I just thought it was something that was under the construction party that.
It wasn't
where the
hooked up
property
and
was,
No, auxiliary.
So, no, we're good.
No, it could have been exposed. I can't verify that at this point.
I'd say let's move on.
Yeah,
From the
let's move on.
conversation.
Um,
They've agreed today.
Yeah. You'll see kind of the last, if you scroll down, it's actually page 15 of the packet document. Supposed to be under material, and I probably just didn't mention, this is what the opinion of cost was for the section of school property, of what the work would be done on the new section of school property. So it would be kind of that, what's currently the end of Shepherd Street there. It ends up to a amount of $39,878.29 to that section, so.
Cool.
I know that's something, you guys had requested, and I mentioned in my Friday email to you. I apologize, I received this, back in March and somehow overlooked it and then did not remember what I was being asked, so I also don't remember receiving it, but I saw it, I replied to it, and I said thanks, and I didn't pass it on, so that one's on me, but, I have it now.
I'm just throwing out there. Is everybody okay with spending points on the private properties in the school? I mean,
Well, it would be public property, and if we don't do this type of assessment with other projects, do we, when looking at what we do in terms of sidewalks and things like that, or personal property?
We also remember what the purpose was, the original purpose of this project, and it was to improve the safety and, I guess that street goes into the parking lot of the school, and this would be making that alignment correct and safe. So this cost would be a part of that solution. Now, if we didn't spend this money, I don't think we'd end up with the result of the projects of what we were aiming to do with this.
I was just throwing that out there, but, is the, road itself gonna be repaired then, or?
So there's, place that would be placed, because there's like an installation of like that curb and bump out section from, on the.
That's what I'm saying, though, there's no new surface, it's just along the side of the sidewalk, I don't see any.
There's, There
I mean,
is,
it's got curb and gutter, but that's the biggest share, but I don't see where it's resurfaced or anything.
You're talking about within
PCC
the
pavement.
parking lot area.
Well, like from
pavement
Cherry
removal.
Street on up to the school. I mean, I know there's some concrete, but I was just wondering, it's gonna be the surface that's there right now with just new curbing, it looks like, because the curb and gutter is the biggest expense there.
Well, there's pavement there, 7 inches of it.
Pavement PCC item 14. It's number 14.
From going, from down that whole length, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I was looking at item 14 there. There's some pavement there. It's not, we're not talking a huge section of the project as far as actual pavement. It's really just the entrance there, which establishes that it's supposed to be a little bit of a bump in there.
That's what I'm saying, it's not going from there to the school.
Not a huge.
No, that's their property. It would just be on the property within its change. And whatever we damage during our construction of the road.
Okay.
This is more informational purposes tonight, so. Everyone good on engineer report stuff?
Yeah.
Alright. First thing I have for you guys in my report, have the solid waste and recycling collection services agreement. So this is an agreement that is taking influence from our previous agreement, with Johnson County, but I also worked with, Dan to add in, there is a performance, so it's actually section 3, the insufficient service penalty breach. So, this, let's see, we added, there is last section, I guess, nothing in this section shall prohibit the city from exercising its termination authority pursuant to section 15 below, which overall, we just wanted to kind of expand on our ability to get out of the contract if there were issues with service, knowing that, I wouldn't say we've ever had any issues with LRS that would warrant, termination of the agreement, but there have been times where we have had some service issues and, but we just want to make sure that we're protected here. This would go through July 1st of this year to June 30th, 2030, which is a 5-year contract. And then other than that, it's going to be pretty business as usual, with our agreement. So,
I like the modifications of the contract. Good job on that. I will make a motion to approve resolution 2025-39.
yes. And as a note, it's mentioned in the contract, the certificate of insurance. We did not include that in the appendix for the packet, given that there was, I was a little wary of whether or not that needed to be in a public packet or not, but we do have the certificate of insurance on file from them. So all of the appendix items have been met. We've received, as you'll see, the equipment list of what they're utilizing. And then I did meet with, so as far as the improvement to service, LRS now has a municipal service manager that they didn't previously have, so they have someone specifically dedicated to city solid waste and recycling collection. We had talked about some updates to lawn waste collection, as well as like our spring fall cleanups. So rather than doing those just as a one morning thing, that it could be an all weekend where they drop off a couple slide off dumpsters, and that they would drop them off on Friday and pick up on Monday, which would give more flexibility to the community as far as pickup goes, and help with our volunteers to be able to be a bit more flexible with that, so.
would have to be managed at all times.
They felt that it was,
On our end, if people go down there and throw computers and TVs in, we're gonna get dinged.
You made a motion, right?
yeah, we can talk more about those service centers. At this point, it's just this agreement.
I made a motion.
That's good. I'll second the motion, but section 14,
Okay.
What about
Oh,
it? See, looks like it reads good to me.
13, 14, 13, 14.
that's what I was
There
wondering.
is no 14.
I can have that updated.
You agree with it?
I'm skeptical. I just make a notation that,
Yeah, I'll second it with that.
there was no
With that,
section 14 included in our packet.
Can have that reviewed there.
Huh?
I don't even notice that, yeah. It's the mystery section.
Well, I didn't notice it when he was talking about putting other stuff in. I thought, okay, what section is that?
It's something I'm imagining they deleted for this contract.
Yeah, so just with that correction, yeah.
Click that.
So can we make sure then next spring that we get this pickup done, like right after the citywide garage sales?
I tried to schedule that this year, Tom, and when I reached out, it would have been late February, or when I reached out to them, I got a response that was already booked for that one. So I can reach out now.
Sooner?
Yeah,
Reach out.
Because Memorial Weekend, I don't know what their results were for people coming down, but I noticed even for us going around town, there's a lot less out. But I just think Memorial Weekend was an awful weekend to do it.
agreed.
They having to come around and change all the receptacles through town?
I noticed some different ones out. I've noticed some with their names on them.
Oh, really?
He would
Well,
never
I
place
thought I
them.
read in there somewhere, they were bigger than what we have, and I was wondering how big they
No,
were.
I mean, we still have the 3565 for garbage and 6595s for recycling, as far as the carts go. I mean, they'll replace the carts, as repairs are needed, or a new home is built, we'll bring in new carts. So, yeah, it's not, I don't know, they should be the same carts. We still offer the same sizes anyways, and you do have multiple options for sizes, as I mentioned.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second to approve the agreement. So we want to amend the motion to note that the agreement should be updated to remove or
Change 15 to 14.
14. That, okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay, any additional discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote on that. Mills? Yes. Schneider?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yeah.
And Rogerson?
Aye.
Good, agreement is approved.
You have it. Motion. Meeting streaming, just quick update. We have ordered a meeting owl, that we will be trying to find a location in here, which is a camera that will be able to zoom in, on whoever is speaking, be a higher quality, better speaker, and make our stream a little better. So that should be here this week, and then we'll be able to test pilot that one next
So
meeting.
you talk to Sharon Center to make sure you have the proper bandwidth.
We've been streaming for 54 minutes solid.
So
So,
You guys are awesome.
improvement, little things, but, overall, I think hopefully we're continuing to go in the right direction, doing that stuff. But anyways, any questions on meeting trainings? All right. Outdoor warning siren system, quick update on there. Still waiting on Alliant to get up to the water tower and get, service started on, service, started on that siren, but the water treatment plant one is up and running, that went fine, and then, Sheriff Schneider has requested RC Systems, remove the siren out here. I've had gone back and forth with RC Systems as well as some of the subcontractors in the project and didn't really get us getting anywhere on it. So as Jared representing the, Washington County Emergency Management, I guess, contract holder, stepped in and, sent an email. I haven't seen, any responses on that yet, but it is part of the bid, and, you know, they have that on the agreement, to do that, so we'll see what they can do to get that worked out, but, I also reached out to Alliant Friday with some general questions. That was on one of them, is when should we expect, Alliant to get that going, and then also what can we do on this out here to be able to, so it's gonna require some temporary, disconnections on some of those service lines, so, takes some coordination, but I think we can get it done. So, they just have, I guess, the subcontractor I talked to, they looked for work, in the pole installation, had some concerns with their ability to be able to get their truck in back there to be able to pull the pole out, as well as, get a bucket truck up there to get someone there to help with the disconnect stuff. So it's, definitely is a bit of a space constraint, but if they did bid it, they need to, I think, either come true to their word or tell us that they aren't gonna do it and change the price on that, so.
I know where the ladder truck's at.
We do have one of those. Do you wanna go up there, Tom? I'd be buckling my knees. But anyways, that's where we're standing at on outdoor warning siren system. Let's see, last week, Alan, myself, Carrie Gerber, building inspector, met on site with, Kelly and Matt Wood, as well as Mike Lombard and his, future campground, manager, supervisor. Talked about some of the, neighbor disputes that we'll figure out. I think that they're gonna be able to work out a privacy fence between the two properties. I think that's gonna be good. It sounded like both parties were open to working together. Right now, I guess our end of things is taking a look at some of the parking that's on Commercial Drive. And in the past, we had given permission to Copper Creek to park on Commercial Drive, for event parking. There is no parking signs on Commercial Drive. And then Mike also requested, on the south end of Commercial Drive on the west side of the street, that there be some more no parking signs and the curb be painted yellow. Some of that would have to be any changes to parking ordinance of how we need to review that and amend it.
What was the reasoning for desiring that?
To ensure that there was, adequate space for campers and RVs to be able to turn in at the section down there where his entrance is, which it sounds like between the two parties, they wouldn't seem to be reasonable and wanted to work with each other on parking, and not interfering with one another, but also, acknowledging that they both will likely have parking needs. Well, Mike doesn't want parking out in front of them so it can get in, and then the woods with the venue will likely have overflow parking from time to time. But, we did offer some other options for them to look into, that it's kind of up to them to consider. But as we mentioned, the other walk wheel and commercial drive, potentially leasing part of that for them to do parking on, if needed, as an option.
I guess one option that I wanted to get the city council's thoughts on, if you're open to it or not, is we do have that lot there, and as long as we have it, are we open to discussions on owning part of that lot, allowing them to park their overflow there, so that we don't have to have anything on the street?
Would there have to be a curb cut on?
I don't know where that curb ends there for sure, potentially, I suppose, or, yeah, I don't know how
I'm
we.
trying to look
I
at
think
it right
there
now.
is-
I mean, I'd be open to that, but I think if they're gonna do that, they should be the ones mowing it. And they should have a plan for, given 12 months, have a plan to not do that anymore.
Well, that is one thing we talked about is, like, we understand that the area is growing, both the businesses are growing, that there's gonna be iterations and solutions likely, that they're gonna, some of those longer term solutions are gonna take time for them to, put together. Like, one thing I did mention to Matt and Kelly is getting their parking lot striped, so they can be a bit more intentional in how parking is controlled and utilized there, so they're not having wasted space. But they may need to look at expanding or purchasing land, something around them to be able to expand parking, but,
Do they even have the handicap type parking designated?
I don't think so.
It appears like it's curved, it appears it's curved the whole way on the street.
But I don't think there's anything striped there, Tom, which is, I don't wanna say for sure without looking, but there isn't anything striped, I'll say that. There might be a sign, but there isn't anything striped.
Yeah, I think,
Go ahead.
no, you go first.
Is there any conversation on emergency and fire restrictions as to widths of that street that need to be open at all times?
It's certainly a consideration as part of that. I mean, it is fairly wide through there, but also, you have to keep in context the traffic that would be going through there as well as positioning, right? So you don't want to have traffic on the butt end of an intersection. So I would say that's part of consideration when you make a change to parking, our parking ordinance on that. I guess I don't have an answer for you right now of what the specific, requirements would be for something like that, but as it stands,
And drive in and back out, there's no circle to drive in, circle around, and come back out with a fire truck.
that's also not uncommon in other places of our community. I mean, that's the main thing I've talked to Chad about, is making sure they can get in somewhere. Getting out after the fire's put out is less of the issue, but, for something like an ambulance or something like that, those are a little bit more mobile than a tanker truck or a ladder truck, so,
Well, I would agree with Ryan, I mean, we give them that opportunity, but they ought to maintain it. And if it goes through the winter, they're also gonna be responsible for, you know, moving any snow if they wanna use it. And we're not liable for any damages or cars that get stuck or drive off in the ditch or,
Yeah.
and it's just a temporary fix, that's all it is.
yeah.
And I guess that's what I was gonna say is, you know, I'm for letting them use it too, but I think we need to make sure, I realize we have insurance, all the other places, but if we're encouraging more activity on that lot, then I think we need to make sure that we're covered, because you have a facility that's, you know, has receptions and there's
They need to
alcohol
have-
involved and stuff, so I just wanna make sure that we're covered.
And they need to have an end game, rather than just passing it on, passing it on, passing it on.
Right, because there was.
Or else they stay within their own property.
Because there was an agreement already that, I don't know if it's been filed in the county, that when that came to be, that it says Mike gave them permission for some parking, so does that need to be revised too? You know what I mean?
Well, that was how many plans of his ago.
Well,
It's
I get that, but
changed.
I'm just saying, if we filed it, I think we need to make sure that we're up to date on having that, because 10 years from now, when there's other people on the council, it's like, okay, it's just hanging there. I'm just thinking, but the other thing is, I'm hoping they won't be parking there when it's really muddy and.
That's what I meant,
Well,
it's not our responsibility if they get stuck or ran off or.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, we need to know all the guidelines
And if
for
they
it.
do, they're responsible for cleaning up the ruts or in tracks or
Yeah,
damage.
yeah.
This is just more of a, I think, an introductory conversation on it. They did request that, knowing that parking, has been an issue and will likely continue to be, especially with more traffic on there. It's something that we should probably take a deeper look into. And frankly, we're not gonna be able to probably meet everyone's needs on it, where, our priority is to make sure our streets are safe first and foremost. That's the primary function is to offer. And then if we can do on-street parking too in select areas, great. But, yeah, we'll have to look at it a little bit further, but tonight's just, I guess, Alan, did you have any other comments to add on this?
Let's try to at least make some headway on this topic. So the reason for my recommendation was just an alternative to on-street parking. I guess if we're okay with continued on-street parking, that's fine. But some of the conversations I heard previously where we don't want people parking on the street. The options are we continue to allow it on both sides the way it is today during events. I think one of the discussion points that we had out there was we only allow it on one side primarily, which would be the west side, and keep the east side free, so that's another option. Or we try to get the parking off the street and look at either that lot or potentially some type of agreement with University to use overflow parking there or something like that. So I guess I would like to know what everybody's thoughts are in terms of what we want to allow in terms of on-street parking.
My 2 cents would be, if there is allowances to park on the street, it's only one side, not both. And if we have a discussion with them about parking on our lot down there, I don't want to see in the future all of a sudden camper trailers pulling in there and setting because that facility's full. And then I think the doctor's office parking is not even in our conversation. That's not our responsibility. That's between them and the university. So
I would like it last resort parking on the west side of that street. That's last resort. Otherwise, I think they need to figure out parking on their own. It's their business. We can accommodate as much as we can, but
they do
they know what
capacity
their
and they use
business
that
is.
property,
And,
so I don't.
and they need to have a plan in place. And our accommodation should only follow as far as 6 to 12 months. And then you need to have a plan in place.
And I think that parking, going back, I know on quite a few occasions, they're parking on the south side of the road going into the clinic.
Yeah.
So I do think that's not a good thing either, because if you're gonna turn in there with a fire truck or something like that, it's not gonna be doable, because that road isn't wide enough to make that truck. So I think we need to figure something out, because it's just, we're in and out of town enough that, when they have something going on, it's a problem out there. And, I know they were parking even on that other property in front of them. Again, not my problem, but there's a lot of overflow.
So knowing how people
obey rules and stuff. If you allow parking out there, you put down yellow curbs, you put down your proper signage. We do our proper, city ordinance. People that decide they want to park wherever they want to park, are they free game for citations?
Free game or tow.
While you're outside the yellow markings or whatever, you know, or parking up some grass, jump the curb, whatever the case may be, to enforce what we allowed, and depending on how many people there are, we, or the sheriff department, able to go take care of stuff legally.
Yeah, and they have every right to issue citations and.
So I think you're probably gonna end up having to allow some parking somewhere there. There's not enough area out there. I'm a whole leery of all the conversation of the lot and stuff, just because what people do, you know? So, short term, yeah, but
I'd like to see a plan on them before we even discuss short term.
Yeah, I mean, there's a portion of it that there's their responsibility on it. I mean, we have our responsibility on the street. I mean, another thing we didn't talk about, it was mentioned at the meeting, but like an off-site parking location with a shuttle service or something like that is certainly an option for them as well. But that's something that'd be, some of those solutions are more of a private matter to coordinate, and ours is in the public right of way.
I'd like to see them be a little more proactive than us.
Do we still want to look at, restricting parking on, or looking at parking restrictions in that area? Like, that's something you can bring back a map, determine where it makes most sense, and then looking at, amending our.
We're gonna have to on the east side of the road when that campground's done.
So currently, right now, that street has what? Free game for parking
No, there is no parking signs on the street.
on the whole street, either side.
I believe so, yeah.
They were told they could cover them or something during events or something
Oh.
originally.
Yeah, that's their understanding, and I,
Is that something that you just allow, or is that something?
Well, that was-
Ordinance type thing you should have
Maybe
been?
that was a temporary too.
That's what I, yeah, so we had the discussion, they said that the city council told them they could bag up the signs, which they said they don't do, they just let people park out there. But I did say that, maybe in the agreement at the time, that wasn't necessarily
Right.
forever. So, yeah, we can do what we want out there, they don't own that street, everybody should have the same access to the street.
How wide is that street?
28 to 32.
Yeah,
It's fairly wide.
I
don't
guess,
remember if it was the wider version or not.
I guess, I'm like Ryan, I guess, yeah, I think maybe if, I don't know, can we do a work session with them, or, I mean, or just give them, just say that, I don't know, it's,
I mean, we always could walk it, I mean, I'd be happy to get a map together and highlight what's our currently parking allows, and then some different ideas of how we could address it. I think it would best be to get input from them, know the affected parties on it. But yeah, I mean, we could look at some options on it.
well, I guess what I'm saying is, some of those motorhomes are pretty good size. I mean, a lot of them park over, you know, in the semi area, and some of them pull trailers or pull cars behind them. I'm just saying, you know, the traffic in and out of there with pretty good sized motorhomes and stuff.
It's like a 30-foot wide street.
32? Okay, 32.
But
I base it off of 10 bases, so I got roughly 30 at
Yeah.
28 to 32.
Yeah, the action, as far as I'm concerned, it's on them. And then we'll work for a temporary solution until that action is completed.
So our number one option at this point be to allow parking on one side of the street during events.
that go from Highway 22 back to the end of the field, just on one side of
So we could set, say, like a no parking, and then have like you could have a no parking sign that also dictates like event parking only, and or like Saturday, like you could specify that on there for specific sections, so then we still have control over, hey, there's no parking at other times, but for this specific use, these specific sections, that kind of parking is allowed. So it kind of gives that flexibility, that makes sense.
Is there no parking on the river crossing street?
I don't
There should be no parking over there.
Yeah, right now, well.
Is that a different
We
deal?
don't control that.
But now, is that considered like
Private drive.
Yeah, it's not part of the street.
Yeah, okay.
But people do park there.
Yeah.
Shows that people will park wherever.
I would say, yeah, if we decide that we're gonna allow it on one side of the street, it should be on Copper Creek Ridge to put signage on the other side of the street saying, no parking, no event parking or something like that when they have events, just to make it clear to people. Does that guarantee nobody's gonna do it? No, but then, to.
At least it's there.
If it
That's why I was wondering, if you follow all the rules and do it
Yeah.
right, is it enforceable?
Yeah.
To get
Well-
people not to do it again, hopefully.
Well, and I'd say that we've been going like this, so let's give them, they've got stuff booked, through the summer, but by the end of the summer, they need to have it figured out. So like, say, 3 months.
Well, yeah, I think that the deadline that we're dealing with here is if and when Mike gets his RV parked up, then it's gonna be a problem whether we like it or not. So that's why I wanna try to keep the conversation moving, so it's not an urgent thing, because we've got that jammed up and RVs can't get through, and then they're both complaining about it.
But I guess that's what I'm saying is, this is not a new problem. The city helped them with the parking lot that should have, that's the
Yeah,
problem.
no, I agree with your point, I was just saying that if we wait until the end of the summer.
Right.
We might already be in the thick of it, so.
Yeah, I guess I mean that they have to, I don't know, but I hate to give them 30 days and say you need to have it figured out, you know what I'm saying?
They did say that it's usually only an issue for their bigger events, and I think they had maybe 1 meeting a month or something like that they were doing. They said it was pretty light this year, but then next year they've got a fairly full schedule.
Yeah. I'm happy for them, it's
Yeah,
awesome to see it, when that isn't the problem, but, it's.
Anything ever said about the front properties of the mobile home stuff, is that sellable, or what do people do with that, That can be turned into
I
more
don't
parking.
know much I want to say in a public meeting, but they have an interest in that property.
I would think they would.
So, not to continue the conversation, put a pin on it, actual direction on what do you guys want on this?
So I'll throw out a recommendation. We talk to them, we tell them we're willing to allow parking just on the west side of the street. And then you guys can weigh in at the end here. Does that give them enough parking for their events? Like, are they gonna be able to put everybody there?
Yep.
Or are they gonna end up parking on the other side of the street? In order for us to allow that, it's their responsibility to put signage on the other side of the street and make it clear that there is no parking there. And if they need more parking than just that west side, then, what are they willing to pay, or what are they willing to do for us to consider use of that lot,
Right.
I guess, you're saying the west side, the university side, park on that, is that what you said?
That's what they wanted, yeah. They
Yeah.
wanted no parking on the east side, parking on P. Both Mike and.
Oh, okay, so Mike's the green, I just wondered what campers, okay, yeah.
Well, he said as long as you have that side clear.
Okay, well, yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't see both,
Well, you don't want it on the parking on I guess, if you have parking on the west side, you end up parking on the east side. Yeah, if you have parking on the east side, you would have parking on the side that has the entrances to Copper Creek.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, driveway.
which you wouldn't want to have it. I guess,
On that side, it all depends on where people stop parking.
yeah, because you don't want to block the entrances. But also, on that, you wouldn't want to have parking on, so the very south end where, on that, by Mike's lot. You wouldn't want to have parking on the west side there, because you still want to have wide enough to be able to get turns made through there.
You can check with him. I thought he said he was okay if it extended down there as long as the other half of the street was available.
I got off, I guess, clarification from him on that. That was under understanding that he was concerned about the west side of the street, but I can check with him on that. But thoughts on Alan's recommendation on parking on just in the west side, and that Copper Creek would be responsible for the cost of the signage on the east side.
Signs or curb paving or whatever it is to, well, I would say they just need temporary signs that they can
Event time, okay.
have at home, just so it's not,
Okay.
just to not confuse people. I would say all of the time, it's no parking.
Yeah.
Other than during the events, they can put something out that says no parking this side and then tell people they can park on
Yeah.
the other side of the street.
So just, what length of time, just this summer then, or? I mean, so they have to come up with a plan, you know?
Yeah, I don't know
To allow this, you have to amend our ordinance.
how well it works.
So for us to make changes in our parking, we'd have to amend our parking ordinance to change our signage and how it's laid out.
No, because I'm not saying we're gonna allow parking on the other side of the street at all times. It's just for.
Just temporary.
Yeah.
So not something that needs an ordinance change, it would just be specifying that they can we can pass a
We'll
resolution.
allow on the
Yeah.
parking, but no parking on the west side.
Yeah.
During.
Temporarily though.
Yeah.
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 But I also would make a recommendation that they reach out to the university about using that lot.
That's up to them.
You know, but I would state that too, I mean, that's something they should research.
All right. Last couple things should be quick. Just wanted to schedule wellness center work session. So we would do next Monday on our typical schedule. At this point, since I guess, still waiting back on stuff from Maggie, I don't know if we'll have that stuff back to review. I still think it probably would be one of our, I guess, our big task in front of us would be getting that, as far as the bond goes, getting that not to exceed number for Giovanni. Let's see, other things would be going over information for the public information campaign. Let's see. I guess, are we okay if we pencil in next Monday, schedule a work session, and then I can work with Brian and Opian to narrow the scope of what our meeting will be, and then if there are any other requests for that, I would ask that you please let me know, and then we can get that on there.
When's your next committee meeting scheduled?
So we have it scheduled for tomorrow night, but I also, last meeting I got an agenda from Mary Beth Ross and Chris Westfall about a week before, and I hadn't seen anything from them, and, so we have one scheduled for tomorrow, but I haven't seen any information from our chairs on that, so I'll have to.
The reason I asked is I'm wondering if it would be beneficial to have the two.
A joint one?
At the same time, because I think we're starting to get to the point where we're both,
Yeah.
there's some overlap in what we're doing. We're talking about money raising or fundraising and stuff like that.
What do you guys want to do next Monday? And I can reach out, I can send a message out to the board right after this meeting, or the committee right after this, and then do a joint meeting next Monday.
It's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see if there's an interest in doing that.
Is that something you guys would want to have OPN at that one, if possible?
If they're gonna do some of that.
I think it'd be best.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's 6 o'clock and.
yes, sir. And the last one I have here, I know when we talked about employee performance evaluation, the last council meeting, we mentioned June 23rd as a possible, date for that. It'd be the fourth Monday of this month, so we're gonna have, although it's a 5 Monday month, we're gonna have would be a busy month, but June 23rd would be for individual performance evaluations with staff, as well as, I think we'd probably approve, pay, adjustments there, but with that, at 6 o'clock work for everyone? And then we'll just give each staff member a, specific time for them to be here, and then it should move a lot, I guess. Say we start at 6, I don't anticipate each don't take too
5
long.
minutes each.
I don't think it'll take too long, but at the same time, I think it would be better the alternative of having to wait for throughout the rest of the meeting, or have to stop the regular meeting to do that, so. I think 23rd. At 6, does that work for everyone? Okay. May 23rd, 6 p.m. June 23rd, sorry.
What? Yeah, no, I have a
Sorry
hard
about
time
that.
backdating, I'm not sure how to do it.
Give me a break, it's only the second. I got at least a couple more days to get into June. And then Kevin, you asked me about nuisance stuff,
Yeah, just,
Friday.
quick update on.
I'm meeting with Terry, our building inspector, tomorrow to go over some of those properties, and kind of get started on some of those. I just sent March raised a couple notices in there, and then I got reached out by the property owners, and then it seemed one of them, potential change in ownership or change in residency has occurred. But I can talk to Terry. That's something realistically for us to get somewhere, I'm gonna have to probably offhand that off to him, our attorney, to work on. So I think some of the follow-up to make sure those are moving in the right direction, realistically speaking, to get the results needed on that, I don't think it's something that I would be able to get that done and some of the other things, but Terry does feel like would be able to get some progress made on those, so, yeah, I guess turned around a few times so far this year. I haven't seen, we had a couple grass things early, but I don't think it has been as bad this year, as it has been in previous years, but, I guess one nuisance related thing would be a win. I guess, Tommy, this is one of the past, but there's a lot, on 22 or Hickory Street down there that is, right across the street from Sycamore Street. The owners of that block previously had an agreement with, I think, a tenant of the property that since moved out, and they thought they weren't taking care of the lot, and we've had it get overgrown a few times over the last years, and I think, Anthony had been mowing it, but, we have now, I contacted them, and they've been taking care of, owners been taking care of that again, so they've been notified of that. Yeah, I guess, any other questions tonight on anything?
It doesn't appear that we have a private parking lot ordinance.
Question mark.
Yeah.
You say private
So like
parking.
Copper Creek not having lines painted on there and not having any handicapped spots, we should probably look into that.
The other site plan ordinance, so the number of parking spaces is dictated by use. And, now I'm not sure you have to have a certain amount of parking spaces. Now, this is in the definition of parking space, does that include striping or painting of how they're I know how to wind up, because that would be a site plan requirement with the development of the property, but after it's built, I don't know.
We should probably look into that, make a match, or if we can, or something, you know?
Is there another question?
Can we, reach out to people to make sure they stay on top of the weed control within
The stations.
the station fencing and stuff?
Did the casino want to get,
I think it looks so green.
okay, I'll try by tonight to look at it.
And then we heard anything from the owners of the house that had caught fire here on the east side of Railroad, what's the plan for that?
So they got their variance to rebuild that, and they have a demolition permit. I haven't talked to Tyler since we had the, Board of Adjustment meeting on that and issued the permits. I'm not sure where they're staying on that. I can give Tyler a call and ask. I guess I'll let Terry know, let him take care of that.
But it's planned to be demolished. is what-
Yeah, so they're demolishing that, and they're rebuilding the same footprint, but they're gonna be adding a basement.
Okay.
to it. Yep.
You know, people probably are aware by now, in about 30 days, there's gonna be an area in town that's gonna look completely different. It already does now.
Already is.
It already
Yeah, it
does.
really does. Nice work, by the way.
So,
Is this public, or, is
Yeah.
this good? I meant, I didn't know if we went from the video, okay. I haven't driven up there, but somebody was asking about the condition of the pond at Conservation Park. Ryan, can you see it out your window, is it?
I keep meaning to go over there and pressure wash the
Oh, the.
shelter and the dock and whatnot, but, we do have a problem with people throw dead fish on the bank.
But the water itself, I guess, somebody was.
The water itself's pretty mossy, but, every pond I see right now is pretty
Okay,
mossy.
I just didn't know, somebody was wondering if.
Yeah, I don't think that's uncommon, but yeah, I have had complaints about people throwing fish on the bank,
Yeah, that's good.
so, there's that.
Do we put up a sign or give them an alternate location to get fish?
Over the driveway.
It's not a whole fish, they're cleaning
Yeah.
that on the bank, and they're throwing it on the bank as opposed to throwing it back in the water. And then people's dogs roll around in it 2 days later, and the owners are mad,
Yep.
Yeah,
which I would be too.
yeah.
There's one lot left on, what is it, Cherry Lane, that isn't developed yet, and it grows quite tall. Whose property is that?
in the corner,
No, it's in the middle of the lot, or of the block.
I think that's a.
'Cause it was really tall, then it got mowed, I didn't know who mowed it, but it was tall forever, I was gonna say something, but.
I think that's, I don't want to speak out of turn and say it's a property owner without, no, like, I don't know off the top of my head.
With ticks being big this year, that's prime place for all their little neighbor kids on both sides and everything, or dogs and everything.
I will take note of that and reach out to property owner on that one.
Well, I was gonna complain and they beat me to it. Oh, shut.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Also.
I thought I had that turned down.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, we're adjourned at 7:30. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Lloyd. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm hung up on it right now.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, you
Appreciate
did?
it. You got it.